Hi, I'm Megan Sewell, and I'm doing the leadership interview for the AEC 3414 class. Um, for this interview, I chose to shadow Doug Watson of Brandon Lane Clearing and many other entrepreneurial endeavors that he has. I chose him because he's a successful business owner in our area and he is active in the community and he has a pretty impressive work-life balance. He's entrepreneurial in real estate and agriculture, and he is a Rotarian in our community. Um, he also has a family and he has a son that he chooses to lead by example, and he wants his son to see what a productive person in society looks like. So his success paired with his ability not to harbor work-like stresses in his social and charitable life intrigued me, and I wanted to do it right along with him and try to kind of gain some perspective on, um, what steps he took to get where he was today. So during my interview, we kind of did he told me a story of how he got started and, um, how he's been able to accomplish things so far. And he's been through a lot of struggles in his career. Starting as a lawn technician in high school, he was driven to accept a higher paying job at a local nursery. And he began in entry level positions, pulling weeds and doing things that maybe he thought were redundant or tedious. Um, but he knew he had to start somewhere. So, in the course of his high school, in that year, he began to have some conflicting schedules within his school, and he was thinking that he may have to quit this job. And quitting wasn't a word that was taken lightly in his house, and it was something that he had to really go home and think about, and he wasn't taking the decision lightly. So he went back, and his manager offered him the opportunity to work some other hours and stay later than most people were, because I feel like that manager maybe saw something in him that didn't necessarily see in some of the other employees. In the years following, he made some connections within his industry that pretty much changed the trajectory of where he was going, all while still being in his teens. He moved on from the nursery and went to a landscaping company, and that man ended up partnering with him in an irrigation company, and a few years later they ended up partnering in a land clearing company. And by his mid-20s, he had kind of earned enough money to buy out his portion of these companies and became the sole owner. But if he a couple years prior had just said, I think I'll just quit, it would have been a lot easier at the time. But his success story may look a lot different than it does right now. Also, being in the construction industry, he's had to go through a few recessions and kind of deal with global market changes that he didn't know if he was going to survive or didn't survive, but he stayed the course and was steadfast in his decision making, and through that was able to ride kind of the ebbs and flows of the market and stay committed to his business. And it was my impression during the ride along that it was his need to achieve and his fear of failure that really pushed him along through his journey. While I was in the interview, we discussed different personality types within different people, and we established that he is inherently an executive personality. And after I read up on that a little bit, I understood why. And he had a lot of traits that lent itself to that naturally. I observed him using, during that day, I went during the ride along and kind of saw how he started his scheduling and how he started with his employees during the day. So I observed him utilizing the democratic leadership approach on several occasions. He used participation, listening to both good and bad ideas that people came into the office with, and he made evaluations of their opinions based on the facts that he needed in order to get the job done. He used coaching techniques by assessing the employee's strengths or weaknesses when he was delegating work that morning, and he kind of shifted people where he knew their strengths were and paired them with people that way. And he also, there was a younger guy in there, and he took the time to kind of mentor or guide him through some of like his struggles that he was already having during the day. So that was interesting. And then he also finally, like at the end of it, what I gathered was that no matter what, he was also a very coercive leader. Inevitably, like after deliberating the input from the employees and assessing all of their capabilities, he was the be-all end-all in the strategy. So he made sure that what he said was final, and due to all of that, I feel like that his employees, heeded to his leadership and his logic and understood where he was coming from, because he gave them the benefit of the doubt also and listened to them, and they respected his decisions as a leader. After my interview, it was my perception that he was, above anything else, he was an effective leader. He believed in the power of structure and organization, but he was also improvising during the day. When things didn't go exactly as he had planned, he improvised and took the time to make some arrangements and shift, and it really didn't mess up his day. In each morning, he takes an hour of planning, and he assesses what needs to be done during the day, and he brought each employee in and kind of went over the schedule with each employee before they headed out to fulfill their tasks. And it was my understanding that he did that to be able to hold them accountable later whenever they say, oh, I didn't know this, or whatever the situation was. That way he was able to hold them accountable for their future actions. And there was a lot of value added for me in his personal confidence and decision making. So when he made a decision, he really stood by it, and he felt vindicated in that decision. Some of the statements that I valued during the day when I did the ride-along was that helped me understand his kind of leadership on a more practical level was the word drive. He used that word a lot. He just described himself as a very driven person. Early on, he overcame adversaries and people that doubted maybe his abilities and proclaimed that maybe he wouldn't amount to much. But since then, he's used that to really drive him to want to prove these people wrong. And he believed that if you possess the ability to have the drive to accomplish your ambitions, then you could have what it takes to rally other people around you to achieve your career goals. Something that he would tell his employees, or I heard him tell an employee, was that, just always strive for perfection. If you fall a little short of your goal, then at least it's better than being just good at whatever it was. So in these lessons, I found that within each person, there's different personalities and different forms of leadership. But if you can motivate people around you and you can use your strengths to communicate well with people, then these are the qualities of an exceptional leader. Overall, I enjoyed this project. It was interesting to shadow somebody else and see how they got their work accomplished for the day, and how people looked up to them and valued them. So that's it. Thank you.